up? It's Friday, February 17th. I am currently at home. I just finished some work up for the day and I'm actually getting ready to head to the gym to get a workout in. Super pumped for that. But yeah, I haven't made a YouTube video for this week and I have been thinking about making and filming this video for a little bit. So I thought, you know, let's just do it this week. Why not? Hopefully I can get this up by this weekend. So it's February 17th. Hopefully I could get it up by February 19th, Sunday. And what I wanted to come on here and talk about today, I didn't want to do really a vlog. Maybe I'll vlog this weekend or something like that because I am trying to film every single week still. I've been really enjoying it. It's kind of like a creative outlet for me on YouTube. YouTube is definitely my favorite form of social media because it's long form content and I feel like you can actually get words out and explain something. And you guys know I love to talk, so that's why it's probably my favorite. But I wanted to come on here today, and you can probably tell by the title of this video, is I want to talk through my testimony. So I've actually never put this out on social media, which is, I don't know why I haven't, honestly. I should on Instagram. Anybody that I meet and they ask me about my testimony, I am willing to tell. Obviously, I won't go into detail about some parts just because those are probably more intimate parts that I would talk about with someone one-on-one, maybe not on the internet. But I am going to just talk about my testimony, and there's probably not going to be many edits to this video. I'm just going to honestly download it and maybe splice here and there, but we'll just be putting this up unedited. But this is my testimony and how I developed a relationship with Jesus. So I'm going to tell a little bit about my life before I developed my relationship with Jesus, when I did and was saved, and then ever since. So that's kind of how I'm going to explain my testimony. And I just want to first and foremost start off with this video saying I am not boasting about my life. This is all to only boast about the Lord. I actually just shot something this morning on my Instagram. If you're not following me, go follow me. My name is @JillKathrynKlein. After I got married, literally Jill Klein was taken, so I had to do my middle name, Jill Kathryn Klein, which it's fine, it's okay. Go follow me on there. But I was actually telling a story about something that has happened with Michael and I's life pretty recently. And I use this verse because I was actually reading it this past week. It's very timely. I'm going through 2 Corinthians right now in my quiet time, and it's from 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 17. And in that verse, Paul is referring to something in the scriptures that says, boast only about the Lord. And that is why I wanted to preface this video with that, because I'm not trying to glorify my individual struggles. I'm not trying to glorify my journey of, oh, I found Jesus or anything like that. I am glorifying God because it is truly only by His grace that I can be saved. It's only by His grace I have breath in my lungs. It's only by His mercy that He has given me a second chance. So I just want to preface that. This video with that verse, and maybe I'll put it down here on the screen or something like that, but 2 Corinthians chapter 10 verse 17. And then I also want to say that it's important for us as followers of Christ to tell our testimony, because it shows like God has given each and every one of us an individual, unique story, and that story is able to reach people, because different people too. My story is able to reach a different group of people than maybe your story is. And if we all were able and willing and courageous and bold and brave to tell our story, we'd be able to reach people all around the world, all around the nations, and point people to Jesus and just how He was able to save us and give us an everlasting eternal hope and what we're going through, and maybe somebody else is going through the same type of thing. And our testimony, because we spoke up about it, it's something that God has equipped us with in our tool belt to glorify Him, to point people to His Son. And if we spoke up about it, maybe we would be helping so many people out there that have just really never heard about Jesus. So I am going to tell my story, and yeah, that's going to be this week's video. This is probably, honestly, my most important video on my channel moving forward is just me telling my story and how I became a follower of Christ. So let's get into it. Okay, I first want to, and this might be like a brief version of it, but I first want to start off with my childhood. So I grew up in a family. I have two amazing parents. I grew up with two older brothers. They are pretty much my best friends. I literally love my brothers with my whole entire heart. And I was the youngest. And I grew up in a small town in Illinois, Southern Illinois, very small town. We have about 2,200 people in our town. And I grew up in a very athletic family, okay? So I grew up on a farm and we had a big shed, we had a big yard, we were constantly practicing sports. Me being the youngest with two athletically gifted brothers, I was constantly just trying to keep up with them. I learned how to shoot a basketball at a young age. I learned how to field a ground ball, throw a softball. I would throw the football around. I did everything. We're always doing sports, always, always, always. Either my brother was going to a baseball game, my other brother was playing in a football game, and I was going to a softball tournament across the country. We were always involved in sports. And because we went to a small school, we were a 1A elementary, middle school, and high school. Because we went to a small one, we kind of felt like big fish in a small pond. That's how the saying goes. So we were just very gifted. God had blessed us with those gifts, and so we were always involved in sports. Sports were like the center of my life. And also, we grew up in a family where my parents prioritized going to church every single Sunday. That was a non-negotiable. Even if I was in a softball tournament across the country, my mom always made sure that we went to a church on Sunday. Always try to find a church nearby, and we try to go sit in the service if I didn't have like an 8 a.m. game or something like that. So that's how we grew up. My parents were great parents, great leaders. They did whatever they had to do to make sure that we had like some of the coolest opportunities. My dad is a farmer, and he also is an engineer, and then my mom worked at a hospital. She worked in IT for healthcare for a long time. She's still in IT, just not in healthcare. But just grew up with some really cool opportunities, super grateful for that. But like I said, sports were the center of my world. And so we went to church every Sunday, but I never really listened to the sermons. It was a very traditional church, a Lutheran church. Nothing wrong with the church, just didn't really have a young crowd because we were in a small town. So a lot of the people at our church were in, they're either parents or they were grandparents. And so I never felt like I had this community of young people to really grow with. I didn't have a youth group. They got rid of that in my church because there wasn't enough involvement in it. I always went to Sunday school, and I loved Sunday school growing up, but I just never really listened to the sermons. So I always knew about God. I believed in God, but I never heard the gospel in a clear way that I could understand. And so I wasn't just very firm in my faith. I wasn't that. I was really relying on my parents' faith, and it just wasn't my own yet. And so that's kind of a background just with my Christian walk as a child, I guess. I don't necessarily think I was saved. I got baptized when I was a baby, but I don't remember any of that. And I couldn't have told you about Jesus. I couldn't have told you about the Bible stories, nothing. I was just doing life over here. I went to church, but I wasn't really listening. I was showing up for my parents. And then growing up, I, again, got to be really good at sports, and that was such a gift from God. I wasn't glorifying him with the gifts. I mean, I had good character and everything like that, but I wasn't in an interview saying all glory to God or anything like that, just because I wasn't at that point yet in my faith journey. But I played softball, basketball, and volleyball, and loved all the sports. Got to be very good, earned all the accolades, earned all the rewards. God really blessed me. Grew up to play on some amazing teams, played on a travel softball team that was really well known in the area. Got looked at by all the college scouts, all the college recruiters, was getting recruited to play softball in college. And I was just heck to the yeah. My identity was my identity was an athlete. That's how I labeled myself. Who was Jill Niehaus? Jill Niehaus was the athlete, and that's what I was referred to by a lot of people. And being a really good athlete, that's not only how I found my identity, but it's how I got attention from other people. It's how I seek to earn approval from my parents, and all this. It was just something that finally, like, people were starting to look at me a lot because I was good at that, and I completely owned it. I was like, okay, if I'm gonna be a great athlete and finally get all this attention and I finally get to be on this platform, like, that is who I am. I'm gonna take all my time to work to be extremely good at being this really, really great athlete. And so that's kind of how I grew up. Something that was super important in my life that I actually don't talk about much on my socials at all, but it does have a large part in my story, and I'm not really gonna get into details about it. But if you ever want to get coffee with me sometime, I would love to talk about it, because this is a huge part of my story. And that is, at a young age, my parents, they're amazing, but they started fighting a lot. And yeah, so they started fighting a lot, and they ended up getting a divorce and getting separated, and that took a huge toll on me. It was awful, if I'm being completely honest, but I just won't talk about it a lot on here. But I think because of that situation with my parents and all that happened, fighting, all of that happened for years, that made me even more put my identity in being an athlete, because I knew being an athlete was a way that I was getting recognition and was the way that I was getting seen by not only other people in my community, but also my parents. And I thrived off that. It's how I felt loved, honestly, going through a really hard time in my life where my parents were getting separated, and I really just felt like my family was being separated. So that is kind of how I grew up. And so then Jill graduates high school. Jill's recruited to go play Division I softball at a school in Illinois called Southern Illinois University at Edwardsville. And so I went to SIUE just really on a high, like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna be the starting shortstop for a D1 school. Let's go, baby. I'm gonna be, I'm majoring in business administration. I've always loved school. I literally am kind of a nerd at heart. I just love school, love learning, and finally get to, like, go to something that's bigger than 2,200 people in my town. Like, I wanted to go experience what the world had to offer. Even though I was only like a little bit away from my hometown, it did feel like I was separated, because I was staying in the dorms, I was staying on campus, everything like that. And so I went to college, and, you know, was starting out great. Started basically my college career, and I was the starting shortstop as a freshman, and our team was supposed to be pretty good. We had a great fall season. We were winning all these games. I felt like I clicked with a couple of the girls on the team. I felt like my coach really liked me. Everything was good. And fall season ended, and I really felt like I was starting to become somebody that I never truly was. And it was honestly just because my identity was tangled in being an athlete. And then also there was part of my identity that I didn't really know who I was. And so I was just trying to fit in. I was trying to just feel like other people saw me and just fit into the crowd. And I grew up and I never partied, ever. Literally ever. Never was a part of my thing. I had seen people really close to my life struggle with alcoholism and just being alcoholics. And I did not, it literally turned me away from alcohol. I don't drink alcohol at all. I personally don't care if other people drink it, but I honestly hate it. Like, I don't like alcohol at all, just because I've seen how it can divide, and I've seen how it can ruin some really fruitful things in life. And so I had never been involved with partying or, you know, drinking or any of that. And when I got to college, I felt as a Division I athlete, I was kind of pressured into that environment. And if you're an athlete out there, I get it. And let me just encourage you right now that you can say no. And if other people, if they don't understand why you're saying no, who cares? It doesn't matter if they don't understand. You can hold your own, you can stand firm in the foundation, and you can say no. Because my freshman year, the fall, when I was getting pressured, I kept saying yes. And I didn't really ever experience any, like, I still wasn't a huge partier. Like, I'd go, I did drink underage, and not proud to say that or anything like that, but I started partying, and I would get home and I'm like, this is not me. Like, literally not me. I do not party. Yeah, I've never been involved in this. Jill, like, what are you even doing? You hate alcohol. And so at the end of fall season, which our fall softball season in college ended about mid-October, I partied for like a couple more weekends in my freshman year fall semester until like the end of October. And then literally it was after that first Halloween, I pretty much looked myself in the mirror and I said, no, like, this is not who you are. And this, I had still yet to like find my relationship with Jesus. I just knew, like, in my soul, in my character, like, that is not who you are. So you're not going to do that anymore. And literally since freshman year of college, after Halloween, I have not taken a sip of alcohol. And literally, unless it was like communion, if I'm being quite honest, like, I do not drink. I stay away from it. And I would go out to parties to socialize because I'm a very like social person and extroverted, but everyone just knew, like, no, Jill doesn't drink. And I like started creating that reputation, which honestly, I was so appreciative that people like in my life would be like, hey dude, like, don't give her a drink. Like, she literally doesn't drink. Like, they would stand up for me, and I just was really appreciative of that. But so we're in freshman year still. I decided not to drink, started dating a guy. We dated for about 2 years, and freshman year, spring semester, I thought like life was good, you know? I'm getting good grades, I'm in college, coach loves me, season's about to start, I'm gonna be the starting shortstop. I feel like I finally got my life on track. We start season, and my identity is still wrapped up in being an athlete. I'm doing like everything in my power, like getting in the extra hours, all of this stuff. Just would go to the ends of the earth to try to gain approval from coaches, other people through my sport. Like, that is, I did everything. Like, I would go to weights, go to class, go get extra work in, go study, go get extra work in. Like, it was honestly overboard at this point. And we started season. I started, you know, was a starting player on the field. Didn't really start out hot hitting. I was never like known for my hitting, just honestly known for my defense. And felt very confident defensively, just not confident offensively. And then we get to about the 11th game in the season. We're playing Ole Miss, at Ole Miss. I'm starting, and the turf was a little wet because it had rained before warm-ups. And I remember taking quarterback drills, and I literally just like slipped. It didn't feel like anything, and I was like, okay, I just slipped. And then instantly, kind of after, I was like, my hamstring feels really tight, and ended up, I pulled my hamstring. Don't think I tore it by any means, but I definitely pulled it, which I've never had a pulled muscle in my life, but it definitely affected my quickness at shortstop. And so I sat basically the rest of the season. Never have I sat the bench in my entire life up to that point. Literally was always a starting athlete on my high school teams, middle school teams, select ball teams, everything. Never even thought twice of sitting the bench. Like, always was confident that I was gonna be a starter. Usually confident that I was gonna be the leader on the field. And so that was like new territory for me. And it completely broke me down. It like broke me. And I was benched. I lost my whole identity. That was all stripped from me because I wasn't this starting athlete anymore. I felt like I couldn't contribute. I started getting really bad anxiety. I had actually ended up losing 20 pounds my second semester of college. Would eat just like, couldn't keep weight on, I guess. I don't know. Lost 20 pounds though. Felt constantly anxious. Always felt anxious to even drive to our softball complex and even go to the parking lot. I started distancing myself away from the softball team. Even though some of them were some of my greatest friends, started distancing myself from them just because even talking about softball made me anxious, and I hated it. Hated it. Just felt like a different person. My coaches started noticing, and they would try having conversations with me, and I couldn't do it. Like, I was just not in a good headspace. My whole identity had been stripped from me. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know, what I was doing anymore, honestly. And so at the end of my freshman year of college, it was in the spring semester, near the end of season, almost before conference play, I was like, there has got to be something bigger out there, because softball's been stripped from me. I constantly feel anxious. Like, there is a bigger purpose in this. There's a bigger purpose for my life. Softball is not going to be it. It's going to be done in 4 years anyway. I'm not always going to be an athlete. And so I was like, I remembered, and this is so random, but it's so true. This is exactly what happened. I remembered watching Sadie Robertson, and how Sadie Robertson would always talk about her faith, and I followed her on Instagram, and she was always like super open about it, and she just lived differently, and I wanted that. I craved that. I was like, I want to live differently. And so I started going on walks, because that like helped relieve my anxiety. I started going on walks, and I started just church shopping in my college town. We always played on Sundays, but sometimes churches had church on Saturday evenings. And so I was just like trying different churches. I was clearly craving something. I was craving a relationship with Jesus. I just didn't know it then. I was just craving this bigger purpose for my life. And so I would go on these walks, and I found elevation worship on my Spotify. I started listening to worship music all the time on my walks, and it just made me feel so good. And I started listening to sermons on my walks on these podcasts, and I would just plug in. I wouldn't walk with anybody. It was my me time, and I would just go. I'd listen to worship music, listen to sermons, and then finally, I knew Sadie Robertson had written a book. So one night, spring semester, I went to the bookstore. I searched literally all over for this book. I found the book, Live Original. I went back to my dorm. I started reading it, and I finished that book in pretty much 24 to 48 hours. Read cover to cover, couldn't stop reading. Anytime I had downtime from class or studying or practice or weights or anything like that, I was reading this book. Like, could not get my nose out of this book. Just Sadie Robertson really explaining her story and how we're all original, we're all unique, we all have a specific purpose on our life appointed to us from God, by God, and it gave me so much hope. Like, hope was just like, seeds of hope were just planted in me. And I'm like, I need a relationship with Jesus. Like, that's exactly what it is. I am so interested in my faith now. And I remember after reading that book, putting it down, I was done with it. I went to practice that day, and I'd finally like almost completely rehabbed from my injury, and coach was having me practice third base now, not shortstop anymore. We had an established shortstop, shout out Lons, and then I was practicing third base, maybe for just a fill-in. She wanted to see what I had. I went to third base in practice, had literally the best practice of my life. And I'm not kidding you, because anytime I even messed up, didn't care. Didn't get anxious about it at all. Didn't get super hard on myself, because I was like, there is more to life than this. If I mess up, who cares? Take it as like positive criticism. Take it as constructive criticism from coach. Move on. Show yourself. You got a bigger purpose than this. Right now, you're in softball. You're going to own this role, but this is not everything. And I just like had this shift in mindset, shift in perspective, like, this is not my whole entire life now. Like, if I am not good at sports, it's okay. Maybe like the collegiate athletics, like, I'm not gonna be good at sports. I didn't wanna like get myself down like that, but I just had this whole new identity unlocked. Like, my identity could be in Jesus. Like, Sadie Robertson talked about that in her book. And I remember coming onto the sidelines just in that practice, taking my break, my water break. Coach taps me, looks at me and goes, Niehaus, you're looking different today. Like, there's something different about you today. I literally will never forget that. My coach is probably not watching this video, but shout out. I will never forget that, coach. Literally never, because she tapped me and she said, like, there is just something different about you today. And I knew that it was like those seeds that were planted in me from that Live Original book, but she didn't know that. And it's just crazy how you could tell on the outside that something internally had shifted. And so to go a little bit forward, finish out spring season, just wasn't the freshman year that I had hoped for, planned for, or anything like that. Enter into the summer before sophomore season and bought my first Bible, was super interested, didn't really start reading it, but I bought it. I was more interested at church, wanting to listen to the sermons actually. I wouldn't say that I had a personal relationship with Jesus at this point yet. Come back to college sophomore year, and literally, Amara, if you're watching this, shout out to one of my best friends, Amara. I roomed with her in college. She was a transfer student from a school in Kentucky, and she's originally from Ohio. She showed up at our dorm, and our whole team was legit supposed to be there to move her in. Like, coach texted everyone, hey, we got a new transfer, let's help her move into her dorm, everything like that. Nobody showed up. Nobody showed up. If you're watching this, why didn't anyone show up? But anyway, it's okay, because I really feel, looking back at that moment, like it was an appointment by God. Like it was a divine moment by God. And so I met Amara, I showed up, and I'm like, hey, no one else is here. Mom, I'm gonna help you move in. Because she drove there by herself. Her family is in Ohio. So anyway, she drove there by herself. I helped her move in. We were just talking. One of the first questions Amara asked me is, do you go to church? Like, came up naturally in conversation. She wasn't like trying to be one of those like weird Christians where it's like, do you go to church? Like, do you blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, yeah. I've been like church shopping. I don't necessarily have a specific church in Edwardsville, but that just started the conversation of like when she developed her relationship with Jesus. And I could tell off the bat, like, our conversation, like this is gonna be a great friendship. Like I was so grateful that Amara transferred in. And so we moved her all in, and fast forward just a little bit, we became great friends. We started going on walks together. Amara's like a huge fitness fanatic. She's amazing. She's literally one of the best humans you will ever meet. And we started going on walks together, and she really just took me under her wing, whether I knew it at the time or not. And we'd go on walks, and I just felt like she was discipling me. Like, now that I look back and can see that. In the moment, I had no idea. I thought she was just asking me questions and we were having great conversations. But she was definitely discipling me, and she inspired me. She encouraged me with just how she lived out her faith. And I felt like I finally had this person in my life who was kind of like-minded like me. Like, didn't really feel like they needed to go party. It was fine with just going to get ice cream. Like, didn't need to do all these things, and just had like a deeper purpose, was a super hard worker in both school and on the field, but also in like friendships. And I felt like I was that kind of same person. And it was just like God placed Amara in my life to walk with me through this season. And so we would literally go on these walks, and then finally I found this church. It was called Metro Community Church, and it's the church that I now go to as well, and that I still go to, and the messages were just clicking. They had a college ministry. It was just clicking. And my sophomore year of college was still so hard, like literally so hard. I just didn't like my major. I was majoring in accounting at the time, so I started those really hard classes my spring semester of sophomore year. And I just still wasn't playing in softball, and collegiate athletics were very hard. That is another vlog, and I'll tell the whole story of if you're a college athlete and you're struggling, because I was there too, sister or brother, whatever. But anyway, super hard year, but I just always had like a sense of bigger purpose. Like God was really forming my identity. Still at this point, until later on in sophomore year, I don't feel like I had a firm, solid relationship with Jesus, okay? This is just like, you know, I know about him. I'm starting to like, I believe in Jesus, but I'm not like investing daily. Like it's not a personal relationship where he feels like a friend to me. And so we go about sophomore year, and at the end of sophomore year, I was studying in the library. Literally will never forget this. Studying in the library, having just such a hard time. Like I was studying for an accounting test, literally did not like accounting at all. A subject for the first time in my life that just did not click with me, didn't understand it, would study so hard, would read the flippin' textbook from cover to cover, and I'm like, it's not clicking. And softball was a super hard struggle, and I was just in the library, and I saw something on my Instagram. One of my friends posted it about Metro College, which is the college ministry at my church, and I'm like, I've always seen this. I kept seeing it. I'm gonna go tonight. Well, the Metro College started in like 10 minutes, and it's across town, and I was in the library on campus, and it was raining outside. Literally like this whole scene, I'm setting it up. It was raining outside, and I'm like, well, I gotta go now. Closed my textbook, went down the stairs, ran across campus to my car, got in the car, went to Metro College, and I'm not kidding you, it just clicked. I'm like, Jesus, like, this is it in your life, Jill. Like, Jesus, bigger purpose, everything like that. Like you need to form a relationship with Jesus because he is your identity. It's okay if you're not good at college sports. It's okay if you're not going to be successful at college sports. It's okay if accounting is not for you. It's okay if all these things don't align. Like this is the route you need to take. And so I didn't accept Christ on that spot. But then we get done with sophomore year of softball, and we go into the summer before my junior year. I had an internship, and this is where everything changed for me. Literally, it all changed. It was like, this is real, okay? My faith is going to be a real thing for me. Intimate relationship. One of my best friends bought me a Bible, shout out Mads. It was the Quest Study Bible, NIV. Still have it to this day. And I started this internship, and it just like hit me. I was going to church regularly, going to my college ministry regularly, involved in great community with Amara and Mads, who just really encouraged me in my faith. We were doing Bible studies all the time. And I was just like, I need to break up with my boyfriend, and I'm gonna quit college softball. And it all happened within the same week. And I broke up with my boyfriend and I quit college softball, and they were two things that nobody saw me actually doing, and I did it in the same week, and my whole life completely flipped 180. And that's when I started investing in my faith. Before that even happened, like a little bit before that happened, I started investing in my faith. Really, I accepted Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior, was saved, started reading the Bible every single day, and really just knew then that my life needed to change. Like, I wanted to live this out. I didn't want to just say I accepted Christ in my life and then nothing changed. I was saved and then everything changed, because I knew that softball was just adding more anxiety to my life, and I just felt like I wasn't my best self and it wasn't the path that God had for me. So I said no to it and I quit. Coach took it super well. We had a great conversation, have a lot of respect for her. And then my relationship was just not God honoring. So I said goodbye and broke up with him, and my whole life was just like, okay, here we go. And it wasn't it wasn't a very, clean transition. I definitely struggled for the next couple of months, probably 6 months. Not all days were easy, but I knew like that was the right decision. I had so much peace about those decisions, and I really just started investing every single day. I would go on prayer walks, I would listen to podcasts. I was like on a high with my relationship with the Lord, and I would read my Bible. I got involved in small groups. I got really involved in my college ministry. I was going that every Tuesday night and then church every Sunday, and like I was just on fire. Like I wanted more. I was just craving it, and that's what really started just like this new trajectory of my life, and not me just saying it but living it. And then I graduated college, or no, lots happened before that. But I went about my junior year, finally was like feeling healed from my breakup, and I was actually even the softball manager. My coach asked me to come manage the social media and everything like that. And so I still got to be with the team, just in a whole different role, which was super cool. I switched my major. I decided to ditch accounting and go to finance and marketing. And so I got a double major in that. And things just started feeling right. I was like so okay with being independent. Like I didn't need somebody. Super okay with being independent. Grew my friendships like so deep. Like they became my sisters. I had just really awesome roommates. Just like honestly, just like started discovering like who I was and how my identity was in Jesus, and like how everything flows from that. And like he was pointing me in different directions, and I could like understand and receive the calls that he had me going towards. And it was just amazing to see that I had this like bigger purpose for life now. And like my perspective was completely taken off of like Jill the athlete, or Jill this or whatever. And I got to kind of live out the life that he was calling me to. And then a year after my breakup, that's when actually Michael came into my life. And it is just so cool because Michael was so firm in his faith. He's older than I am. He's 3 years older than I am, and he's very firm in his faith. He's a great leader in our faith. And he's just one of the most, like literally, he's, in my eyes, like he is the most incredible human being ever. I married him, and like he is my dream guy, and he came into my life, and I'm so grateful, because if I had not been single that year, if I had not grown in my faith during that year, there's no way I would have been prepared to be the type of woman that Michael deserved as a wife. And we started dating, and literally I knew instantly, like, this man is the man I'm gonna marry. I told everyone, I told my roommates, I told my family, I'm like, I'm gonna marry him. After our first date, we talked at a coffee shop for like 3 hours, and I literally got in my car, went home to my apartment. I'm like, I'm marrying him. Like, I know it sounds so cliche, but it was love at first conversation, first sight, but first conversation, because like I need depth. And he said he had the same. He got in his car, called one of his best friends and said, yep, she's the one I'm gonna marry. And so it was very instant, and our relationship just progressed very fast. We ended up getting engaged actually in Sedona, Arizona before I graduated college, which was so incredible. And then after I graduated college, you know, we had been, you know, I've been walking out my faith for a while now. An opportunity came up, and it was actually amazing, because I applied to so many jobs and got denied by every single one of them. And that is just another whole story, because I thought I had like this amazing resume. I had some really great internships under my belt, some with Fortune 500 companies, and I didn't get any jobs, except I got reached out to by Elevation Church, which is just such a full circle moment, because if you remember when you're listening to this, when I started going on those walks freshman year, I started listening to Elevation Worship and Pastor Stephen Furtick through Elevation Church. And so now I had an opportunity to be an intern at Elevation Church within their project management program, or their project management division for their social media and marketing. And that's like it was right up my alley. So Michael's like, you have to go. And so we got engaged, and I graduated, and then we did long distance engagement for about 3 months. I was in Charlotte, North Carolina, met some of my best friends in the entire world, lived it up in Charlotte. Literally, North Carolina is my second home. If you meet me, I am obsessed with it. I love Charlotte, North Carolina. Had such a great experience. Really felt like God was working in my heart in those years, or in those months, like was softening my heart. He moved me to these areas that I needed to offer forgiveness to people, was redeeming areas in my life, and it was just like such an incredible experience. But after that, I had the opportunity to either take a full-time job at Elevation or come home. And just like everything that happened with my parents growing up, it was always a #1 priority for me that I never want my marriage to be like that. And I was like, I need to invest obviously in Michael and I's engagement, and before we get married, and make sure that we're set up for success when we're married. And so I came home, and that was like a little bit of a battle at first. I really wanted to stay in Charlotte. I wanted him to move to Charlotte, like, which is just so much to ask of him. Like, he would have had to uproot his life, and we would be starting something new, and he knew nobody there. But I felt peace about coming back home, so came back home. We were living out our life here, going through the process of engagement, just getting prepped for marriage, going through premarital counseling, and doing all the things. And I was really starting to struggle again with identity, because I was starting in post-grad life. Not many people talk about it, but post-grad transition is very hard. And I had a great job, but I just didn't feel like I was comparing everything to my job at Elevation. And I thought that was like a dream job for me. And so I felt like nothing compared to it. And I started putting my identity in my career, and that will fail you every single time, just because that is such a worldly thing. And if you put your identity in something in the world that doesn't have everlasting power, that doesn't have the ability to fulfill you, you have an infinite size hole in your heart, and something finite of this world will never fill it. And I sometimes try to do that in things that are of this world. I try to be very much things like that I can be successful in with the skills God has given me. So like a career, I was trying to fill that infinite size gap, and I was left unfulfilled every time. And that's when like God's like, hey, remember that your identity is in Christ. And so that was a whole thing during post-grad that I really feel like he has been working in me again, just like not from an athlete perspective, but from a career perspective. And so that has been kind of my story. Post-grad was very hard, has been very hard, but I feel like God has really like finally gotten me into a groove and has been teaching me lessons. But I'm in my 20s, so I'm going to be learning constantly. That's what I've heard 20s are for. So Michael and I got married, and now we built our home, and we're living in our home. And yeah, so there have been some bumps around along the road, but I'm just so grateful that it's only by God's grace and his mercy that I get to have an eternal perspective, and I am promised just a life after this, an eternal life in heaven with him, and just that is the hope that I have. And I just want to let you know that this is my story, but this hope is also offered to you if you have not accepted Christ as your Lord and Savior. You have that ability. Jesus is God in human flesh form, and he was sent down from God to save the world by dying on a cross. He died on a cross even though he was sinless. He was perfect. He loved us that much that he saw us in our sin, and he wanted to die on a cross to just really take the brunt of our sin. And he offered us his life, and that was all out of love. He did not have to do that. And so he died on a cross so that we'd be offered that forgiveness by God, so that we could finally be in relationship again with God, because sin separated us from a relationship with God. So Jesus was the only one that could come down to earth to finally bridge the gap and finally create this relationship with God again. So he died on the cross, went down to the grave, and 3 days later rose again. And he defeated death. He's the only one that can defeat sin. He's the only one that could bridge the gap for us. And so that is offered to you as well. All you have to do is put your faith in Jesus, to believe in him. He just asks us of our faith, to say yes to him and to accept him into your life, and just say that he is your Lord and Savior. Actually say it and receive it out loud, and you can be saved as well. That hope is offered to you, just like it's offered to me. He came here to save the entire world, not just specific people. And so I just wanted to mention that in here, because you might be listening to this testimony and you're like, well, cool, that happened to her, but what about me? And I just want to let you know that feel free to reach out on the comments of this video. I would love to connect with you if you're having those questions, point you in the right direction. But also, if you are in a community, one of the best things that you can do is get plugged into your local church. And I'm sure that your local church has people that could actually disciple you in person, which is the best opportunity. That is what the church is for. So anyway, that is my story. Don't know how much I'm going to edit this. I know that was very long-winded, but if you stayed along to watch this point, thank you for watching. All glory to God, not to me at all, literally to him. It is only, again, by his grace and mercy that he walked me through that and still offered me a second chance, and saw me in my sin, but still extended the invitation that I could follow him and be offered this eternal hope. And so if you want, give this video a like. Make sure to subscribe to my channel, and then comment what kind of videos you'd want to see in the future down below. I would love to hear from you. But anyway, I hope you have a great rest of the day. And also make sure to follow me on Instagram again at Jill Catherine Klein. Yeah, and thanks for watching, guys. See ya. Bye.